Hello, and welcome to the latest in the series of interviews with members of the Honourable Company of Gloucestershire. I'm Patrick Brooke, a past Warden, and currently I'm a member of the business group of the company. Today I'm joined by Ruth Dooley. Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Patrick.
And thanks for agreeing to be part of the series, Ruth. Now, members will know Ruth, I'm sure, but maybe I can reveal one or two things you don't know about Ruth before we go on to the business bit. Now, Ruth was educated in Bristol before going on to Pembroke College, Oxford, where she read modern history. Her first job was with Mars, one of my favorite confectionaries, I might say, Ruth.
Good.
And you were a key account salesperson there, I believe. Quite how that led you into accountancy, I don't know, but then you started training with Clark Whitehill in Cheltenham, and you qualified as a chartered accountant. Your next move was to Grant Thornton, where you specialized in tax and became a partner during your 16 years with that firm. 2009, was it really that long ago? You moved to Hazlewoods as a client-facing partner, specializing in tax professional negligence and matrimonial expert work. Now, when I reread your outside activities, because I knew you were quite an active person, I got quite exhausted. You're into sailing, diving, skiing, snowboarding, salmon fishing, shooting, and when you got time, you enjoy theatre and music. You have a RYA Yachtmaster, an advanced PADI diving qualification, and you even found time to be voted Southwest Accountant of the Year. You're an excellent business presenter on BBC Radio Gloucestershire, I've seen that firsthand, and a contributor to other local media. You chaired the business and professional sector group of G1 LEP, where you're now board member, I believe, and you were previously board member of the Growth Hub. And of course, you're a member of the Honourable Company's business group. Now, Ruth, I do expect to have missed something out in all that, but let's move on to business issues. As you see them anyway, especially those arising from the current pandemic. So let's start with your role at Hazlewoods. It actually would be interesting to hear how professional firms are coping with the pandemic. I guess it would be an obvious thing to say, but professional firms rely on business relationships. How do you do that with social distancing?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time for all of us. And you're right, you know, a lot of building relationships is about seeing people and seeing them face to face. But I do think that people have adapted very well to the world of Zoom, etc. I have some clients now who I've never met in person, yet we have a pretty good relationship through the various Zoom calls we've had and the telephone calls we've had. So it is possible, but it's not perfect, of course. And the sooner we get back to being able to talk to people on a one-to-one basis or in a group, I think the better for our business, the better for businesses generally. The key challenge for us as a business has been the trainees. With the staff that have more experience, they find it much easier to do home working because they've got an idea of what they are trying to achieve before they start. Whereas the trainees are in a much more difficult position because it's much easier to talk to a trainee and explain what they need to do when you're side by side than it is trying to do it over a video or trying to do it over the telephone. So I think that's the real challenge is developing the trainees when we're when we're during lockdown particularly.
This means you've got to introduce new ways of working, I guess, ideas
That's
and
right.
procedures and processes that perhaps was never in our thought processes just 1 year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's procedures. It's also to do with individual situations, because there are some people who have great connectivity and obviously communicating and dealing with them is much easier than people where their line is breaking up and they're having real difficulty in working in a digital way. The Hazlewoods are very, we're very fortunate because as a partnership, we invested in a new communications system about 6 months before lockdown. So we'd already got something called Jabber, which is sort of an instant messaging and telephoning system on our mobiles. We'd already got WebEx, which is an equivalent of Zoom on our computers. So actually we adapted pretty well and very quickly to sort of the new way of working, where you know, you are very sort of on your own, and people have adapted very well.
And no doubt a significant investment as well. Do you think this has made your business and other businesses more efficient or less efficient?
I think it's a real mixed picture, and it's really hard to say overall, because in some ways you're more efficient. I think there is more the productivity has gone up in some areas because people are not you know, chatting around the coffee machine, sadly, and when you're on a Zoom call, I don't know about you, Patrick, but I tend to find it tends to be very business orientated, and a lot of the sort of the small talk and the chit chats disappeared, which, although it makes it sort of, it's missing and it's sad to lose it, it actually creates quite a lot of efficiency in terms of getting through stuff and getting stuff done. So it's a real mixture. But then on the other hand, sometimes when you just need something sorting out and you're trying to do it yourself, and secretary's busy or not, or that can happen in the office as well, but you know, it's harder sometimes to get everything sorted. So some things are less efficient and some things are more efficient, but you just have to learn to adapt, and those businesses that learn to adapt are the ones that are going to be okay, whereas those who can't cope with you know, doing things remotely or digitally are going to struggle.
You mentioned your staff, new trainees earlier. So how do you maintain staff morale and camaraderie when they, you know, they're not there, they can't interface and can't go down to the pub for a drink? It's
you're right. I mean, it's challenge. It is a challenge, and especially, you know, for those who are, say, in a flat on their own and struggling to, you know, without any company whatsoever. So we have, when we opened the offices after lockdown, those people who were struggling with connectivity or loneliness were people who we put back in the office as quickly as we could. And those who could, you know, work on more split basis between home and the office went onto a sort of rota system in each department. So you have to sort of adapt to the individual and take account of their own well-being. And as far as sort of social things are concerned, we did do a couple of things when we were allowed to, and we're going to be going to Sudeley Castle. Sorry?
You had virtual parties, did you?
Well, no, we didn't have virtual parties, but we we actually had a sort of a various teams did various things when we were allowed between the two lockdowns. So you know, we try and keep the morale going and keep doing things to help morale. But it's basically, you know, making sure that everybody's being well managed and everybody is being cared for, and you know, nobody's sort of being left to drift on their own.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I hope we'll all come out of this soon and try and get back to some sort of normality. Can we take a thought about the wider aspects of the economy at the moment? And one of my big questions, and I'm sure you'll be able to answer it as a tax specialist, how are we going to pay for all this prodigious spending by the government over the last year?
There's just a big money tree in the sky, isn't there? That's the answer.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's okay at the moment, but as the Chancellor said yesterday, it's okay at the moment because interest rates are low. If interest rates go up, this level of borrowing is not affordable. So everything has to be done as far as possible to keep interest rates down whilst we've got this level of borrowing. I mean, it's happened before in the past, you know, post World Wars. There's been a lot of borrowing to sort of see us through the wars, and then afterwards it was the sort of the infrastructure projects, the investment in building and rebuilding the country that actually generates, as you know, Patrick, that generates a fair amount of wealth, and I suspect that's going to be the main driver of the government is going to be infrastructure. Both, let's hope it's both physical and digital, because we need vast amounts of investment in both, really.
They have rather tied their hands by saying they're not going to increase tax, income tax, VAT, corporation tax, but to me it just seems inevitable. I mean, why should they tie their hands on a matter like income tax, for instance, where they can get some good money in if they choose to?
Well, the Office of Tax Simplification recently sent a report to the government and suggested various measures to help raise revenues. I mean, the key one, which caught the headlines, of course, was the aligning of capital gains tax rates with income tax rates.
Yeah.
And I suspect that will be something that I don't know. I mean, the government doesn't have a strong track record of taking much notice of the Office of Tax Simplification. Otherwise, we'd have a much simpler tax system. But on that one, I think they might. So. Watch this space, but I would have thought there will be some tax raising measures. There's got to be, hasn't there?
Well, that's what I think, but what do I know? Finally, Ruth, can we spend a few minutes looking at the local economy? What do you see happening amongst the county businesses that you're either acting for or involved in with G First Let?
Well, it's a mixed picture again. It depends what you're doing. If you're in the hospitality sector or the entertainment sector or tourism, it's not so good at the moment, as you know, and there's no real light at the end of the tunnel, unfortunately. Having said that, the tourism sector, I think, had a bit of a boost over the summer with staycation. So let's hope that that's sufficient to see some of those businesses through. As far as sort of propping up businesses, I actually think the government has done a huge amount more than I would have expected in order to assist in terms of giving furlough, in terms of business interruption loans, etc. And that has been, I think, quite beneficial to local businesses. Certainly the take-up rate, we had a group of advisors that specifically advised on all the COVID-related grants and allowances available, and they were tremendously busy. I mean, they really were very, very busy, and there's a lot of money that's gone up to try and prop up businesses. Now, the key thing will be when that prop is taken away, how many of them will fall over. My analogy, I thought it was quite good, that one. Anyway, sorry. That is the key thing, really, is, you know, when we come to the end of furlough, what is the unemployment rate going to be? I mean, the forecast originally was sort of 10%. It's now come down to 7%. A lot of it depends on other factors like getting a Brexit deal done. That's a key one. I mean, if that doesn't get done, the effect on the economy is going to be quite huge. It'll be a real double whammy with COVID. So let's fingers crossed on that one. So, you know, there's so many things in the mix at the moment that it depends what you're doing, it depends how well you adapt, and it depends which sector you're in.
Do we think that 7% figure, which I guess is a national figure for unemployment levels, would it be that sort of number in Gloucestershire, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the figures in Gloucestershire are generally a little bit ahead of the national figures. But again, they've got quite a wide range depending on what the recovery is like. So when you see the forecast forward, it can range from sort of 5% through to sort of 12% on the basis of, you know, if everything goes horribly, horribly wrong, it's going to go up, you know, and the recession is deeper than anticipated. If we have the bounce back quicker, then, you know, it'll be at the lower range. At the moment, the range is huge because it's just so difficult to foresee what's going to happen.
I think you mentioned earlier the central funding that's come into the county through furlough, reliefs, etc., to stave off the worst of the COVID-19 impact. But I hear, talking to some businesses, that they just haven't been able to get into those sort of grants. Is that still the position, or is it now, is there a greater awareness and are people, I don't know, more guided towards where the money is? Because it's really important for some of these small firms, isn't it?
It is very important, and it's, as usual with these things, it's not that straightforward. I mean, the amount of paperwork that has to be done is variable, but you know, it still has to be done. And if you're not a paperwork type person, it's difficult to sort of you know, put together what you need to put together to be able to have access to these grants and loans. Hence, you know, us offering a service to help people out. The answer is there are always some that will slip through the net. I mean, we know about people who'd recently started businesses. Of course, they didn't qualify because you had to have you know, you produce your tax return for the previous year, etc. So there will always be people that miss out, and that's sad. On the other hand, it's very hard to create something which is all-encompassing, and ultimately there's the, you know, if at the end of the day there's the universal tax credit to fall back on if everything has gone absolutely pear-shaped. At least there's a safety net, albeit not much of one, right at the bottom if everything does fall over.
Well, let's hope that in 2021 the vaccine will be our solution to the problem. We'll all get back to work. Ruth, it's been a great pleasure talking with you today. I'm sure members of the Honourable Committee have been delighted to hear a little bit about your life and more particularly your views on the local business community. Thank you for sparing the time today, Ruth.
Thank you, Patrick.